Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Courtside Soundoff podcast today. I'm Josh Soundoff. He's Angel Ortega. A lot of stuff to talk about today. Actually, not that much. UFC, Bellator, and the NBA bubble. No boxing, football, or baseball this week. We've still got a fair bit to talk about. Before we talk about that, I want to talk to you guys about Fight Plus. Fight Plus provides a special selection of premium events from boxing, MMA, pro wrestling, and other combat sports. Watch pay-per-view events from over 25 promotions 30 days after airing. Fight Plus includes organizations like Brave FC, Unified MMA, UC MMA, CCW, BKB, FSW, BCB Boxing, Kunlun, and much, much more, and they are available for your viewing pleasure. You can cancel at any time. If you guys want a free 7-day free trial of Fight Plus, you can go to the links that are available on our website, our YouTube, anywhere you can find us. You can find the link, enjoy 7 free days of fighting. If you don't cancel after that, you will be charged. But for those 7 days, you can enjoy it. You know, watch some free fighting, watch some pro wrestling, boxing, anything you want. A fight card happened last Saturday night. UFC Vegas 5, the cursed card. You know, Joe Rogan said UFC won 77 years ago. Welcome to the haunted card, he said to introduce the broadcast. I think this one was arguably more cursed. Brunson versus Shabazian was the main event. That was not meant to be the main event. Holly Holm versus Irene Aldana was meant to be the main event. It got canceled the week before due to Aldana testing positive for COVID. And over the course of the next, couple weeks, some fight cancellations happened before that, there would be 10 fights taken off the card overall. And 2 that ended up being replaced on fight day. Ed Herman and Kevin Holland's fights both fell out. Jared Meerschaert tested positive for COVID. And Trevin Giles, who was meant to fight Kevin Holland, fainted due to a heart problem that apparently he did not know about in the locker room. So an extremely unfortunate situation. So we went ahead with 8 fights on the card. So not a whole lot to talk about, but there were some amazing performances and a couple of really fun fights on here. Starting off in the main event, Derek Brunson defeating Edmund Shabazian. The gate has been kept, okay? Derek Brunson going out there, facing a young 22-year-old. He's been rising up the rankings. The Golden Boy, as his nickname. He's undefeated in the UFC, undefeated in his career overall. He was the favorite going in, a pretty big favorite. I want to say he's a 3-1 favorite taking on Derek Brunson. And Brunson's always been that guy who, he's a gatekeeper. He's the guy that if you can get past him, you're probably world title tier. If you can't, you're probably going to be the guy that's stuck in the top, 10 to 15 range. Now, granted, Edmund is 22, so it's really young to put that label on him. But still, man, Derek Brunson went out there. He weathered the storm in the first round. I thought Edmund took the first round. He looked really, really good, but Brunson stayed calm. He did a good job of mixing in his wrestling and his striking. Second round, he beat the hell out of Shabazian, nearly finished it. We can talk about whether or not it should have been finished because Shabazian looked done. He looked like he went out near the end of the second round. Ended up going into the third. Edmund took a little bit more punishment before the fight got called off. How impressed were you by Derek Brunson? Because it's one thing for us to kind of give praise to Derek Brunson because we've seen his fight and stuff for a long time. But I feel like we're getting more of a improved Derek Brunson at the age of 36. It seems like he's kind of turned around his fighting style a bit.
I mean, it's because he changed that fight camp, man. Didn't he changed gyms, right? Or coaches, something like that.
Yeah, he did. I want to say he went to Henry Hooft, but don't quote me on that.
I don't know. I wanted to jokingly say he was with Black Zillion because I love that name. I think Black Zillion's such a cool gym name. But I don't know.
It's a good gym name. I'll give him credit. No,
but yeah, look. Realistically, I look back at it. I'm like, why the fuck did I make the choice I did? I'm not even gonna lie. I 100%. Like going into the fight afterwards, I'm like, wait a second, I regret my choice. But it was done a deal. I stuck through with it. I got one right, so I can't complain this week. But
you go ahead.
But look, what it's worth, I was like, okay, never mind. The first round happens. I'm like you said, he wins it. I was like, all right, I don't have an issue with it. Following that, though, was just the perfect storm of everything that could have gone wrong for Edmund. So, as for that, he looked really good. Derek looked really good. Credit to him. Everybody really kind of, what I found this situation to be, it's different but not the same. It really reminded me of that Roxanne Macy Barber fight almost.
That's pretty fair. Even up to like their ages, because Macy Barber was 21 and Edmund Shabazian was 22. Like I can see that, man. But I feel like with Brunson it was almost a bit, and also a way that this fight's being treated. I feel like more of like people are just kind of shitting on Edmund and really not giving Brunson any props. And I feel like that was kind of the same thing with Roxanne because I didn't see. Obviously, we gave Roxy her props on this show. We're huge Roxanne Modafferi fans because if you're not, you're a terrible person. And but still, like people just gave Macy Barber a lot of hate for it. And I feel like the same thing's kind of happening with Edmund. Is it just me or is Brunson's performance kind of getting overlooked?
I mean, media-wise, I think not. I'm talking like bigger media, MMA media.
Yeah.
I'm sure not. As far as anything outside of that, the people who maybe don't watch the sport as often or MMA Twitter.
MMA Twitter.
That'd be a different story. I haven't been on the Reddit, so I don't know.
Fair enough. But yeah, man, full props to Brunson. He turned it around, survived the first round, and I was kind of on the same page with you. Like after I picked Shabazian to win, I'm like, man, Brunson's a live dog here. I always thought that since the fight got made, but once he came in looking like Melvin Gillard with the blonde hair, I was like, man, I really
the blonde hair factor.
The blonde hair factor.
Izzy's blonde right now, but we could talk about that later.
No, Izzy's pink. Do you not see?
Oh, he switched again?
Yeah, he switched again. He's pink now.
God damn it.
He's getting some interesting comments online about it. Anyways, moving on to the co-main event. Jennifer Maia defeating Joanne Calderwood. This was sad to me. Like, listen, Joanne Calderwood is a person who's been fighting the UFC for a long time. And now, granted, flyweight's not the most packed division, but even at strawweight, she was still a really, really good fighter. Top 10 tier. And then she moves up to strawweight, and she gets that title shot. She won 3 of 4, beat Ariana Lipsky, Andrea KJB Lee, and was set for a title shot against Valentina Shevchenko. I don't know why she decided to take a short notice, 2-week fight against Jennifer Maia, but she did, and she put her title shot on the line, and Jennifer Maia ended up defeating her via first-round armbar. There's a lot to take out of this, but how impressed were you by Jennifer Maia?
Look, I did not expect the first round armbar. Granted, how can you ever expect anything in a fight, right? You don't expect anything. You shouldn't expect anything because then fighting would be predictable, right? And it wouldn't be fighting. But I didn't think it'd be, as quick as it was within the first round. I remember coming in, I'm sitting down, I'm watching the fight, and I'm like, oh, okay. Wait, did she got it? Okay, that's it. I was impressed. I didn't think it'd end that way. And an arm bar, I got some Ronda vibes there for a minute, brought back some good old memories.
Some good memories.
But yeah, it was crazy. And it was a crazy arm bar. Like she had that. Like there was no getting out of that.
Oh yeah.
So it was over. But it got to the ground, so I'm like, okay, there'll be a decent scramble here. Maybe Joanne will get out of it. Obviously I picked Maia, but just the way in which it happened, the takedown was relatively good. They were on the ground for quite a while. Like the submission attempt was there going on for a minute. But it was pretty quick.
Yeah. I was pretty impressed with how fast the fight went. I was pretty surprised. Now I thought Jennifer Maia was a live dog for sure. I picked JoJo, but at the same point I was kind of like, this is a really bad move. She's based off of the MMA gods. I fully expect her to lose, but on paper she should win. Especially considering, the MMA gods love to reward people who miss weight. It's just one of the things that happens. And Maia missed weight twice coming into that fight. But still, props to her. We're going to talk about it in a minute, but is she deserving of a title shot? Potentially. And you look at her resume, defeated Roxy twice, former Invicta champ, defeated Vanessa Porto, Alexis Davis, and now submitted Joanne Calderwood. The title shot should have gone to JoJo. She ended up, giving it up to take this fight. I'm sure she explained why somewhere. Still don't know why she did that, but is she deserving of a title shot? Personally, in my opinion, no. I'd rather, especially considering her track record, I don't even know if she'll make weight. She's missed it let's give credit, she did make weight for JoJo, Joanne Calderwood fight this past weekend, but she missed weight terribly twice before. I think she missed by 3 pounds one time and 4 pounds the other time. and that's not super reliable. If you ask me, I would wait for, if Jessica Andrade beats Jessica Ai in like a month, I'd give it to Andrade because I think an Andrade Shevchenko fight would be, baller. I think that'd be an awesome fight. And if not, give it to Cynthia Calvillo, who already defeated Jessica Ai a couple of weeks ago. I think that would be a better fight and more deserving because at least, she's made weight, and we know that she's probably going to make weight. What do you think? Who do you think the title shot should go to next at 125?
I mean, if you look at that weight class up top, I mean, she's either beat the people or the other people are kind of not on, just lost a fight or kind of on a losing streak or tied up. Unless you want to throw it to, who is it, like Lauren Murphy, who's up there too.
She deserves a shout too. So shout out Lauren Murphy.
Okay, don't hate, but she's up there, Yeah. So I mean, I wouldn't be up in arms about it. Granted, like you said, the weight thing is going to be an issue. Granted, fight night might come around. It's time to make weight, and it's not even a title fight.
Yeah.
So that'd be the pressing issue for me.
Fair enough. That's kind of my. I hesitate to give title shots to people whenever they have, like, they're known to have weight issues. Same thing for, like, somebody like Ray Borg, who fell out this weekend due to weight cut issues. He's one of the 10 fights that got scrapped. He was scheduled to fight this weekend, so that's tough. But yeah, good win for Jennifer Mai. Put yourself in the conversation. Dana said she'll probably get the title shot, but probably Dana says lots of people will probably get the title shot. He still hasn't even said if our boy bantamweight Aljamain Sterling is going to get that title shot. So whatever he says really does not matter. But what is there anything else on the undercard you wanted to talk about?
Dude, a fan favorite, Vincente Luque, once again, absolute destruction.
For sure.
Destruction of information. It was insane. Now, granted, how do you feel about Randy Brown as the opponent of choice and not someone better?
Listen, the UFC has this weird mini division where it's like Randy Brown, Nico Price, Mickey Gall, Mike Perry, and Vincente Luque. Those guys just seem to fight each other all the time.
Not even
and
wrong.
you know that I'm right about that. It's strange, and I get why. Because, Randy Brown's looked really, really good his last, I'd say even 4 fights. If he doesn't get hit with, like, the hammer fist off the back by Nico Price, which is one of the most awesome knockouts, he would be on like a 4-fight winning streak. Beat Brian Barberena, and the Warley Alves submission was super impressive considering how good Warley Alves' jiu-jitsu is. So I didn't have a problem with Randy Brown getting a top 15 guy. I just wish it was not Vincente Luque. Luque needs somebody in the top 15 at this point. It's ridiculous.
Well, let me tell you this. So prior to the Wonder Boy loss, he was on a 6-fight win streak, lost to Wonder Boy, came back, now has two TKO and a KO win finishes. But then his last fight was against Randy Brown, and it's like his last ranked opponent was Wonder Boy. So it's like, what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, he's faced, like, he got one ranked guy, and that guy was Wonder Boy, and it seems like because he lost that one, they're just like, all right, back down to the non-rankings for you. Like, that's not fair. That's not right. I mean, first of all, that fight was awesome, Luque versus Wonder Boy. Second of all, he needs somebody in the top 15. I think he should face somebody like Showtime Pettis next. I think Luque deserves a name again because he's proved at this point. He's more than proved. I mean, if you look at his losses, so he has 3 losses in the UFC. Michael Graves, who's actually a really, really good fighter but got cut due to legal issues. Leon Edwards, who's in the top 3 at welterweight. And Stephen Thompson, who's in the top 5 at welterweight. And neither one of those were super bad losses, And he's knocked out almost everybody. He's knocked out literally every opponent or submitted them outside of Mike Perry. And you don't do that. So you don't knock out Mike Perry, the Platinum Man. So
and then a fun fight too.
That was an awesome fight of the night. And you can look at his credentials, all his performance bonuses, all his fights of the night. He, one of my favorite fights this year was him against Nico Price at 249. That's one of my favorite fights this year. That was just an all-out brawl. Both of their fights they had, they were all-out brawls. So listen, man, he needs a ranked guy. I think the Pettis fight makes a lot of sense. I think he called out Nate Diaz, but Diaz is not going to take that one. Pettis will totally take that fight. Pettis is a guy that Pettis knows he's past his best, and he's in there just trying to have fun fights. And I respect that to a whole nother level, because we'll talk about some dudes who are past their prime but still think they're title contenders and future champions in a little bit on the show. But
Pettis might be locked up right now, though.
He may be fighting Anderson. That's true.
What do you mean he's about to fight Cowboy now?
Again, yeah. Yeah, but he may fight Anderson Silva next. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but whatever. I think Luque should get somebody, either a big name or a ranked guy next. But yeah, shout out Vicente Luque. He was probably, that was the best finish on the card overall. Though the best fight on the card was Bobby Green, Lando Venata. I told you guys. I told you last week. This fight is going to be the fight of the night. I told you that their fight a couple of years ago was one of my fights of the year. And the Madmen, they went and did it again. I'm not sure how they keep on doing it. I mean, like, these guys can fight each other. I think we need a best of 7. First one was a draw. Second one was a win for Bobby Green. We need a best of 7 between Lando and Bobby Green. All right. Lando is the worst fighter, like, that will never get cut. All right. He's never gonna get cut. If you look at his career, almost like fight of the night, performance of the night, fight of the night, fight of the night, fight of the night. Like, the dude has so many fights of the night, and this is just another one. It was an awesome fight. Shout out Bobby Green. He picked up the win. 2 wins in a row. Maybe top 15 guy next. I mean, he's a name in that division, or at least he used to be. Beat Clay Guida, beat Lando Banana, so shout out him. So, yeah, is there anything else before you want to move on to this week's card, my man?
I think we're good, man.
All right, I think we did a pretty good job on that one. Anyways, moving on to this Saturday night, the Black Beast is back. Derek Lewis, the champion of Popeyes, taking on Alexei Oleinik, the boa constrictor. I think that's his nickname or something along those lines. This is one of the more interesting style matchups because it's one of the rare ones, because MMA, when the sport began, hundreds of years ago, but whenever the UFC began and started gaining traction, it was typically, a boxer versus a wrestler, or a karate guy versus a jiu-jitsu artist. That's not really the case anymore. Everybody is very well rounded. There's still dudes who striking is, they're best at striking, but they're still super competent on the ground. This is a situation where these guys cannot be more polar opposites of each other. Derek Lewis's best jiu-jitsu move on the ground is the stand-up. He has one win via submission. I don't remember it. I guess he got an armbar in 2010. Oleinik, and Lewis he's a knockout guy, right? Like, almost all of his wins are via knockout or decision. Oleinik, on the other hand, 46 wins by submission. It's pretty clear at this point that if he's gotten a TKO, it's pretty much just on the ground. He doesn't really drop people. He has power, but he doesn't really display it that much. Obviously both of them are coming off back-to-back wins. Obviously Lewis coming over wins against Ivanov, Ilir Latifi, trying to get into that title picture. We got the title shot a couple of years ago against Daniel Cormier, came up short. Alexei Oleinik trying to get into that title picture. Won 2 in a row against Fabricio Verdum and Maurice Green. Who are you giving the edge to in this one, man? Because I'm kind of torn on it.
I'm still confident with my Black Beast pick. And let me tell you this. My whole thing is, it's like, against the heavy hitters that he's fought, or that like Curtis Blades, and he lost to Alistair Overeem via TKO, which is kind of like, no hate to the Reem. The Reem has like good power, but the Reem doesn't have power like Derek Lewis or Xenia, to put it like that. And then also Walt Harris, who I say is like also a pretty heavy hitter, and that was in 12 seconds.
Yeah.
So, Derek, who with one from the south will randomly hit you, and you'll get stunned, late in the round, in the third round, about to win the fight, do that. I'm pretty confident with my Derek pick, even though Derek is not good on the ground. Derek has survived on the ground. He will put up a fight, because even in that, and if I remember in that DC fight, it might have gone to the ground at one point. It wasn't the best, but he was still able to stay in there for quite a while. or survive.
The entire fight was contested on the ground because DC was trying to wrestle the shit out of him. But Black Beast defended for 2 rounds.
Yeah. And then Oleinik, I don't think Oleinik will be able to take a shot like that from Derek Lewis. At least not multiple back-to-back like that to the face. But, I mean, if he takes through them, credit to him. And if he takes it down to the ground, I mean, that's his bread and butter. But it's kind of like, that's kind of the only way it's going to go. It's either like, Oleinik's going to take it down to the ground, boom, the submission's going to happen. If the submission doesn't happen, it's over for him, unless he just controls him on the ground and makes the fight really boring. As for Derek just has to keep it somehow on the feet or not get taken down. Just knock the dude out.
Yeah, I look at it and, Oleinik, he's very wild as a striker, and he's wild to a point where it's like, Lewis is also wild, but I think he's going to put him out. Obviously, I'm conflicted. I can easily see Oleinik taking him down real quick and then just, getting a submission. But at the same point, I'm pretty confident in the Black Beast actually getting the knockout one. Huh?
I mean, his corner could tell him to do the Imanari roll, which would not be would not be an unexpected thing,
Yeah, you could go for an Imanari, submit this motherfucker.
I wouldn't expect it. That'd actually be crazy if he did do that, dude. Like, your round starts, bam, goes right into it.
Well, dude, I thought, honestly, Oleinik versus Verdum was probably it was a brawl, so it wasn't bad to watch. I was entertained, but it was the worst looking fight I've seen this year in terms of their speed. I feel like Alexei's slowing down, but because Verdum looked so bad, we didn't talk about it. Like Oleinik, he's always been one of the slower guys at heavyweight, and you could see that in like the loss to Walt Harris because he looked like he was moving in quicksand. Same thing for Overeem, same thing for Blades, so on and so forth. But I thought he looked so slow in that Verdum fight. And Derek Lewis seems like he's slimmed down. He seems like he's dedicated. I'm gonna pick Derek Lewis to be a relatively early KO.
You know something weird? So I'm looking at the rankings right now, and Derek is ranked 4th right now. Alexei's ranked 10th, Blades is ranked 3rd, and Ngannou is ranked 2 respectively, right? Should be number 1.
Why is Alexei ranked 10th? I feel like it should be a lot higher than that.
I don't know.
Whatever.
Well, the people ahead of him are Yarzinho, the Reem, Volkov, and Augustus Sakai. We can talk about that later if we ever want to complain about the rankings. But the thing is, Derek is 4th right now. If he wins, I don't know if he passes Blades, but he's like right there again. And the issue is, Yarzinho's fighting JDS here soon. If JDS loses, that's going to be weird for the rankings because Yarzinho just fought Ngannou. This is all sorts of messed up at heavyweight right now.
Heavyweight it sucks because normally people are like, oh yeah, heavyweight sucks. It's a terrible division. It's this, it's that. The heavyweight division right now, it's got some players in there, man. Like they've got some awesome dudes at heavyweight right now. Volkov, Blades, Ngannou, Lewis. Old vets like Overeem and JDS and Stipe, like DC. We have tons of dudes just out there in that division, and it sucks right now because the division has been stuck on this like trilogy for the past 2.5 years at this point. It's
finally gonna get settled though next week.
Next week, that's true. It's going to get settled next week, but at the same point, it's like, damn, it's still rough because it's gonna take a while to unravel it, especially if DC wins.
You know what's gonna happen though when DC wins and he vacates the belt, and they announce Ngannou versus Derek Lewis for the 2nd time.
I wouldn't be mad. That'd be an awesome fight. Listen, that's the only fight that was terrible the first time that I would book again. Exactly. Like it can't be bad again, right?
Can't be bad the 2nd time. It didn't take that much damage, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, though, it depends on if Derek Lewis gets a knockout. I feel like if he, because Derek he's won 2 in a row, but he hasn't looked super impressive doing so. I think if he goes out there and sparks him out, I think he'd probably have that momentum and feel like, yeah, I can knock out Francis Ngannou.
Granted, he did fight. If I remember, he fought 2 wrestlers, though, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, see, so. And he's about to fight another submission artist, so I feel like that's kind of, good for him, though, that he's been getting pushed that way.
Yeah, he's certainly getting put to the test because he kind of faced a lot of strikers on the way up. You know what I mean? Like, he faced guys like Volkov, who, to be fair, is probably a better striker than him. But he
he still caught him out, though. We can't hate.
That's true. He faced Travis Brown, Roy Nelson, Gabriel Gonzaga. He faced a lot of kind of strikers on the way up. And now he's kind of in a position where now he's getting thrown the grapplers, Cormier, Ivanov, Latifi, big wrestlers who's going to probably cause us some problems. And we're starting to see what the Black Beast is made of. And he's showing us another level, man. He really has. Like, honestly, people talk a lot of trash about Derek Lewis, but give the man some credit. He is one of the greatest heavyweights on the planet.
He's a pretty good fighter, man. You wouldn't expect it, but the man is pretty good at fighting.
Exactly. So he's a brawler, but at the end of the day, that's maybe all you need in the heavyweight division. Insane power. So full credit to him. Moving on to the co-main event. Chris Weidman, the former, he's back. The former middleweight champion, who I'm so torn on how to describe his last few years. Okay, so I'll just say what happened in his fights. Chris Weidman, he rose up throughout the UFC. He was, 9-0 when he got a shot at Anderson Silva, who, as we all know, one of the greatest fighters of all time, hadn't lost in a decade, so on and so forth. And he knocked him out. It was a weird situation, and it sucks for Chris. I still think about this. It's still the way that two Anderson and Silva fights went sucks for Chris Weidman so much. All right, because first of all, first fight, relatively back and forth. A lot of people say that Chris, he was dominating him, blah, blah, blah. So the first round, Chris probably took it, used some wrestling. Second round, Anderson was coming back, landing some leg kicks, doing a good job coming back. He did the thing where he started showboating and ended up getting knocked out while, showboating, acting like he was rocked. Second time around, Chris Weidman comes out, dominates Anderson Silva in the first round again. First time, he actually nearly finished him again. Instead, Anderson survives. He comes back. And he breaks his leg throwing a leg kick on a check. So basically, Chris Weidman gets zero credit for either one of those finishes. And then he faces Lyoto Machida, beats up on poor Lyoto, gets a decision win. That was an awesome fight. Ends up beating TRT Vitor in TRT Vitor's last fight. He's making a return later this year. But he retired after that one. So now Chris Weidman's in a position. He's facing Luke Rockhold. He's going in. At this point, everybody just says he's only faced old Brazilians and ends up getting the absolute shit kicked out of him by Luke Rockhold. It happens. We all have bad days. And then he faces Yoel Romero, and he gets knocked out again. And he faces Gegard Mousasi, and he gets knocked out again. And then he faces Kelvin Gastelum, and guess what? He wins. Awesome performance. He nearly got knocked out in the first round, but hey, awesome performance. Submitted him. And then he gets knocked out by Jacare. And then he gets knocked out by Dominic Reyes. And now we're here. Now we're in a position where if he loses, he might be out of the UFC. He's only lost 2 in a row, but still 1-5 in his last 6. That's insane to me. And he's finally getting a step down, but his step down is an 11th ranked guy who has not lost in his last 6 fights. Former Sambo guy out of Russia, Omari Akhmedov, beating guys like Abdul Hazak Al Hassan, drew with Marvin Vettori, beat Tim Bosch. Ian Heinisch. Dude is a legit fighter, and this is what's meant to be Chris Weidman's tune-up fight. What do you think about this matchup in general? Before we even get on to predictions, do you think they should have given some, because I saw when this fight got made, people were like, oh, good, a tune-up for Chris. I'm like, this is not a tune-up at all. What are your thoughts on it?
Dude, Chris Weidman's giving me no hope in the last couple of years to ever choose him in any fight, even in the Kelvin Gastelum fight that he won.
That's true. But who do you got? I mean, we could just go straight to that because honestly, for me, I'm super torn on this fight because part of me is probably just being I want Chris Weidman to be able to do something again,
but he's not.
He's yeah, I know. I know that. So you're picking Omaria, I assume.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also gonna pick Omari Akhmedov. I went through his credentials earlier. It's not a situation where he's gonna get knocked out. I don't think Chris Weidman's gonna get knocked out. I don't think that's gonna happen. But he's facing a younger guy. He's facing a guy that's on a tear right now. Listen, if Chris Weidman can't win this one, he should retire.
Granted, he has nothing to lose at this point, though. So that's the one
true.
thing he has going for him.
But I'm gonna pull a oh man, I can't believe I forgot the guy's name. But what camera do I look into to tell Chris Weidman to retire? Which cam?
Oh, what was I on?
Yeah, like that's just but dude, if he loses, he probably should. I mean, I hate to be that guy, but one of two things. If Chris Weidman loses, he needs to and I expect him to. He needs to go down the path of what, like, he has two paths he can go down. Either retire, because at the end of the day, he will not be the same level that he used to be. And that sucks, but I think the Yoel fights and I think the Luke Rockhold fights took something out of him that he's not going to get back. And then on top of that, he keeps on getting knocked out against other dudes. You know, it's not like the thing about Chris Weidman that sucks is he doesn't look bad. You know, he was winning every single one of these fights until he lost them. And that's a weird way to put it, but he was beating Yoel Romero until he got finished in the third round. He was beating Luke Rockhold up until the third round where he got dominated and then finished in the fourth. Gegard Mousasi, he was winning until a weird situation with the referee and an illegal knee or whatever in the second round. Jacare was beating up until the third round and got finished. Dominic Reyes, that one was too early to call, but whatever. Dominic Reyes is the uncrowned champion at 205. I'm not going to give him too much crap for losing to a dude who should be the champion right now, okay? He can either retire or he can just go down the Anthony Pettis route of having fun fights. You know, there's a lot of fun fights that Chris Weidman can have at this point in his career, either be it at middleweight or 205. There's so many fights he can have. You know, I think a Luke Rockhold fight would make a lot of sense. A rematch would make a whole lot of sense. An Anderson Silva trilogy would make a whole lot of sense. But Chris Weidman probably doesn't want those fights because they don't do a lot for him. Because neither one of those guys are really that active. They're not fighting that much. They're not super high in the rankings. And he still believes he's at a, championship level, possibility. Is he? We'll find out after this weekend. I don't think he wins. You don't either. But that's what I want. That was the big story heading into this weekend for me personally, because I like the main event. I like a couple other fights on this card. But for me, that's the big talking point is Chris Weidman, because he seems like, I feel like most people don't even know Chris Weidman's fighting this weekend. Like, I'm not even sure how many people actually know. You know what I mean? Because he's not on the poster. He's not on the promotional material. I don't know who people who actually know Chris is fighting this weekend. So it feels like he might get the BJ Penn treatment and just if he loses, get put on the prelims from now on. But
it's rough, man.
That's just how I feel. Is there anything on the undercard you want to talk about?
I mean, nothing in particular. I mean, there's things that I like, but nothing I personally want to mention.
All right, I'll do the job of mentioning all the stuff that Angel won't. All right, Yana Kunitskaya taking on Stoliarenko. Stoliarenko is coming off of, in my opinion, one of the top 3 fights of this year at Invicta FC Phoenix Series 3. Angel, that's the one you were there for. The main event, bloody as hell. Probably the most. It was so violent. It was a ridiculous fight against Lisa Forsosa for the bantamweight belt. Stoliarenko is making a UFC debut on short notice. It was just with Caitlin Vieira. She fell out, so in steps Stoliarenko. All 8 of her wins are via way of submission, so keep an eye on that. Yana Kunitskaya, obviously, top 10 women's bantamweight. If she's not in the top 10, she probably should be. She's kind of she came to the UFC as a sacrificial lamb for Cyborg. Basically, she got the Chris Cyborg fight on short notice. Max Holloway felt, so they needed a main event. She ended up getting a title shot and a pay-per-view, main event, which is kind of insane to think about in hindsight. And she's made a good career actually since then. Beat Lena Landsberg, beat Marion Renault, had a really competitive fight with Aspen Ladd, last year. Ended up getting finished in the third round, but fight was super competitive up until then. So she's a contender in that division. So good for her. And then my man Beneil Dariush. This dude is ridiculous. He is the most, he's 14th in the lightweight division. I feel like he should be higher. His last 4 fights, Thiago Moises, Drew Dober, Frank Camacho, and Jakar Close, 3 of those are finishes. And 3 of those are actually against dudes that are super hard to finish. Drew Dober's on a tear right now. Frank Camacho is extremely hard to finish. And Jakar Close, that was the first knockout loss of his career. And that was one of my favorite knockouts of this year. He was nearly got finished in the second round, came back, rocked him, and knocked him out immediately following 4 fights in a row. And for a guy that, at one point seemed like he may be done, You know, like at least as a top contender, lost to Barboza, drew with Evan Dunham, and then got knocked out by Hernandez. He's rebounded extremely well. So shout out Beneil Dariush, and he is taking on Scott Holtzman. I really wish he would have gotten a higher ranked guy, but Scott Holtzman is also he's a good fighter in his own right. Won 2 in a row. Jim Miller, Dung Hyun Ma. So he's a good fighter in his own right. So, and then the last fight I want to mention, well, a couple other things. Tim the Dirty Beer Means is back. Nasrat Hakparask is back. Gavin Tucker's back. But Kevin Holland is back. The Meme King. If you're not a Kevin Holland fan, why are you even watching this sport, bro? Like, honestly, I mean that legitimately. Kevin Holland is the funniest fighter out there. I remember his debut against Thiago Santos, which is ridiculous because Kevin Holland's a welterweight and Thiago Santos is a light heavyweight now. But I remember him fighting Thiago Santos, and he actually did surprisingly well. But I remember him just saying funny shit throughout the fight, and that's what brought me on to this kid. And he's won 4 or 5 since then. I remember him against Thiago. Like, the funniest thing I've ever seen during an MMA fight is he's he's laying on his back in full guard, and Thiago's basically raining down punches, and he goes, "Damn, why does this man punch so hard?" And then his corner yells something to him, and he goes, "No, wait, I've got an idea." And he does a really, really shitty Imanari roll. And it was the funniest thing I've ever seen in a fight. So Kevin Holland's back. He's taking on Joaquin Buckley on the prelims. So that was a must-watch fight. If he doesn't get a finish, he's going to do something really, really funny regardless. So shout out Kevin Holland, man. There's more MMA this weekend. I know it's incredible to think about. Bellator is back again. Obviously, the last card they had Sergio Pettis in the main event. He picked up the win. I think that the Bellator main event, and this is a super unpopular opinion, is the best fight of the weekend. It's not the best fight card, although they do have a really, really good main card. A lot of UFC vets on there. But I think the main event of Michael Chandler, Benson Henderson, is probably the best fight of this weekend. Am I crazy in thinking that?
That's a banger, bro.
I mean, have you seen their first fight? I think I should ask that before. Have you seen the first fight?
I know it's good. For what it's worth.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, it's good.
It's one of my favorite Bellator fights probably ever. Basically, if I were to kind of explain, Michael Chandler goes out there. He was the Bellator lightweight champ at the time. He's been the lightweight champ. Basically, there's been periods of time where he's not the champ right now. He lost to Pitbull, to the smaller Pitbull, featherweight Pitbull, Patricio, and lost the belt in the super fight. He's rebounded since then. I think he's won 2 in a row. And this is, I want to say this is Bellator's first big card since coming back. Because obviously Ricky Bandejas and Sergio Pettis, that's a good fight. There's a couple other good fights on that card. I think this is by far their biggest card, and I think this is by far the biggest fight. And their first fight, Michael Chandler comes out, he's champ at the time. Benson Henderson just came over from the UFC, so it was a huge fight. Chandler goes out there. He starts beating up on Benson really, really bad. He nearly finishes in the first round, 10-8. The suplex moment, which is, picture perfect. WWE-esque suplex out of this man. And he, nearly finished in the first. Benson Henderson starts coming back. He starts rallying. In the fourth and the fifth. The fifth round, he nearly finishes Michael Chandler himself. This was an awesome back-and-forth fight. Chandler ended up winning via split decision, and now they're back again. This time it's going to be 3 rounds, which is super depressing because I'd love to see these two dudes go to war for 5 more rounds. But at the end of the day, it's only 3. I'm doing the upset pick of Benson Henderson, which probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I think if it's 5 rounds, it'd make even more sense. But I'm not going to make you pick because I know you probably don't have a pick in this one. But I will ask, do you think Michael Chandler potentially goes to the UFC out of this one? Because that's kind of the talking point here. Is it's less of whether or not he wins. It's more about if he's going to move to the UFC, because it seems like he's pretty much said he will afterwards. Do you want to see him in the UFC?
Dude, I want to see anybody who's good out of anywhere to be in the UFC. You know what I mean?
That's fair enough. But I personally think Michael Chandler has a lot of, he has a lot of skills that I think would translate really, really well into the promotion, and just a lot of those top lightweights. There's so many dudes I want to see him fight. Justin Gaethje versus Michael Chandler is an absolute, dream fight of mine. That sounds like an awesome fight.
It is an awesome fight.
But Yeah, I don't know if he moves to Bellator after this, but I think it's gonna be an awesome fight this weekend, regardless. Best fight of the weekend. As for the rest of the card, you guys should really check it out, man. Like, there's some rare Bellator cards that are just absolute gems, and this is one of them. Matt Mitrione taking on Tim Johnson in the co-main event. Tim Johnson's coming off of one of the biggest upsets of the year. Matt Mitrione has, I think he's lost 2 in a row, but he's still a very, very viable guy in that Bellator heavyweight division. Curtis Millender taking on Sabaho Masi. 2 UFC vets right there. Curtis Millender getting cut from the UFC is one of the most ridiculous situations I've ever seen. He was one of the top prospects, knocked out Thiago Alves, beat Max Griffin, Ciar Bazuda at UFC 232. He's beaten Kevin Holland. He was 17-3. He lost 2 fights in a row, and then he got cut for really no reason. And the 2 guys he lost to were Elizu Zaleski dos Santos and Bilal Muhammad. So that's ridiculous. He should have never been cut. He's taking on Sabahu Masi, who, he's a guy in the UFC who he seemed like he had potential. He lost 3 fights in a row. Tim Means, Abdul Hazak Al Hassan twice. Both those, all 3 fights of those were wars. So whatever. He's won his first fight in Bellator last year, and he's looking for his 2nd win in a row. And then opening up the card, Miles Jury, Georgi Karahanian at light heavyweight. Georgie's one of those guys who's been around in the Bellator lightweight division for a long time. Miles Jury trying to come in, shake things up after coming in from the UFC last year. So that's another fun fight. Absolute awesome card. Shout out Bellator. They sometimes their cards are a little bit top heavy. I think this is one of the first times in a while they put on an extremely really good main card, even excluding the pandemic situation. So shout out them. Moving on to the stuff that I really want to talk about, because I love talking about the meat and potatoes of the show, the MMA stuff, the UFC stuff, the Bellator stuff, the combat sports. But we're the Courtside Soundoff, and we're kind of based in a basketball name. We don't talk about basketball that often. I'm super hyped to talk about basketball this week. All right, we've gotten to see the most of the NBA bubble. We recorded the podcast. I want to say last Thursday, so we've had about over a week to watch teams, get a good feel about how teams are going to do during this pandemic situation, see how they're going to do in the bubble with no crowd, but sort of a crowd. We'll talk about that in a minute with the virtual crowd, which I think is probably the best thing that any sport has done since the pandemic that has begun in terms of crowd and no crowd or whatever. But we can just start off straight to the top, man. What is the biggest surprise for you? And biggest surprise team-wise for you, because we both know who we're gonna say, but it's your team, so I'll let you take the lead on this one.
The four hot start, but let me tell you this though, I did not expect the Memphis Grizzlies to collapse how they have. Now, granted, they did, one of their key players did get injured, but they have collapsed hard, losing every single game since being in the bubble. I'm pretty sure they could have won like one game, maybe a few games, won one, lost one, and they would have been solid. They would have made it into the playoffs, no biggie. Now they've lost every single game in the bubble and completely collapsed. Like, they pretty much had it. They were pretty much secured. People said there was a chance for the Trailblazers, so on and so forth. Other teams below them. They have fallen so hard. Icarus has flown too close to the sun, my friend.
Yeah. That was one of the teams I was going to lead with on biggest disappointments, but we started off there, so we'll just start off there, man. They have looked really, really bad. Not bad, actually. I'd say they've been competitive in a couple of their games. I think they've been blown out like twice, but there's been a lot of blowouts in the bubble. Teams are just getting used to it, so that's going to happen up until the playoffs begin. I'm expecting that to happen. But damn, man, there's 3 things I'm sure of in life at this current moment: death, taxes, and the Memphis Grizzlies losing that 8th spot. They have gone 0-4, like you said. And then here's the problem: is that not are they just losing, other teams look hot as hell. All right, Portland and Phoenix, notably. San Antonio has done some good stuff. Same for Sacramento. They're not likely to make it, but the two
they lost Marvin Bagley too, so that they lost like a player.
That's going to be a problem for them. But here's the big thing: Phoenix and Portland, dude, your Phoenix Suns are 4-0. They are literally the best team in the bubble right now. They are the only undefeated team in the bubble. And I got to give them full props because, it's fun to meme about the Phoenix Suns. It's always been fun to meme about them. But, dude, with Ayton, they look like a legit playoff team.
I know, dude. Booker in the bubble, Booker out of the bubble. It's crazy.
I would honestly – I would be surprised if next year. I think next year is your guys' year for making the playoffs. I think it might be a little bit too hard this year. But do you think that there's a potential for them to get in this year?
There is, man. It's gonna be hard. It's we had going forward. We have the harder schedule for sure compared to Portland, without a doubt, in my opinion. We have the Heat coming up, the Thunder coming up, the Sixers coming up, and then we play the Mavericks again. And it was rough to beat the Mavericks the first time around. It was looking good. They were hot at the start, but then at the end it got close. Luckily, Booker closed out the game. But we definitely don't want another close situation like that. I'm pretty sure we're gonna have to be pretty much perfect in the bubble. Maybe lose one game to make it into the playoffs. Now, granted, the Blazers, they got a decently hard schedule too. I'd say they got to play the Clippers, which is tomorrow. That's a hard game. Depending on what Clippers show up. And then after that, they play the Sixers, which is also another hard game. And then followed by that, the Mavericks. Mavericks will have dogs. And then the Nets, which is pretty much a guaranteed win for them, which is the last game, which should be a guaranteed win.
Hey, man, don't sleep on the backup Nets, bro. Don't sleep on them. We'll get into their big moment, later on, but they're live dogs, man. Shout out backup Nets.
But either way, I mean, no matter what, teams like the Sixers and the Mavericks probably still want to get a win to maybe move up a seed. So, because the Mavericks are the 7th seed right now, they could still move up to the 6th seed, 5th seed, even 3rd seed. I think it's possible. They could still move around. I don't know how high they can go up mathematically, but I'm pretty sure they can make it all the way up to the 4th seed, potentially, if other things work out. So the wins still matter to them. So they wouldn't have to play the Clippers at the start,
Yeah. I mean, full credit to Phoenix, man. I mean, they have the hard schedule, and I feel like they had one of the harder schedules whenever the restart began. And that hard schedule, easy schedule, it doesn't necessarily mean anything if your team does not show up, which is kind of the issue with the Pelicans right now. Because the Pelicans went from being, arguably the favorite to make it because of their schedule to now, I want to say they've gone 1-3 in the bubble, and they have not looked good at all. They're probably the biggest disappointment for me. Even more so than Memphis.
They beat the Grizzlies.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. But they're in terms of disappointment, at least Memphis has had a harder schedule. The Pelicans have probably had the easiest schedule in the bubble, and they're getting absolutely run over. They are. I don't even know if they're still in contention anymore. I don't know if they're I think technically they are, but I think if they lose one more game, they're out of contention.
It's really hard, because if certain things go the right way or things play out a certain way, it's pretty much just done. Because like I told you, the Grizzlies probably could have won, lost a game, won a game, lost a game, won a game, and probably could have easily made it to the playoffs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but now it's tough, man. They are fighting for their life right now.
But it's my life out here, man.
I'm fighting for my life. Killing me with this shit. The Memphis Grizzlies, anytime they play a team during the bubble, apparently. and here's the problem: is it doesn't get easier. It does not get easier, man. You can look at their schedule. They play the Thunder today. And the Thunder, my Thunder, man, they've lost. They lost a game in the bubble, but they've looked good so far. They've looked really, really good, blowing out the Jazz and the Lakers. Blew out the Lakers 2 days ago.
Yeah, the Grizzlies are not getting a break, man.
Yeah, and then after that, the Raptors, the Celtics, and the Bucks, they could legitimately go 0-8 in the bubble. I think it's more likely at this point that we get a Phoenix Suns, Portland Trailblazers play-in series than a Memphis Grizzlies playoff bid. Is that just me?
You said it. I didn't. Anything's possible.
I mean, listen, I think that's more likely at this point. Phoenix Suns and Portland, they both have a super hard schedule, but generally speaking, damn, Memphis they are in for the fight of their life at this point, man. I mean, obviously, the Pelicans have the easy schedule from here on out. They've had the easy schedule the entire time, but it seems like they're on the outskirts, and that's kind of, I mean, is it just me, or are they the biggest disappointment? Because I had biggest surprises, biggest disappointments, but is this me, or is I mean, I guess Memphis and the Pelicans as a whole, is there anybody else who's been kind of disappointing to you?
I mean, look, I expect more out of the Lakers in the sense of like, oh, they're gonna come into the bubble and wreck. That has not been the case. But granted, it's the bubble. They're not trying their asses off. They got the 1 seed. It's a done deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that was something I was going to bring up is I'm seeing the ESPNs, the talking heads, because the Lakers, they clinched the 1 seed. They beat the Clippers, but it seems like they've been having a lot of issues. And obviously, it's more. Here's the thing. I don't want to say it's because of. I feel like it's a couple things. I feel like it's taking LeBron a bit to heat up. I think here's something that we kind of overlooked. LeBron James is unlike any athlete we've ever seen. In my opinion, I think he's, pure. I think he's, in the GOAT conversation for sure. I don't want to get in the mood for GOAT debates today, right? But he's in the conversation for sure. I feel like telling him like he's 35, 36 to take off, 4 or 5 months and just not play. I'm sure he's been training, but it's much different. It's going to take his body a little bit to get back into it. And I feel like that's kind of it. But I don't think the Lakers are in danger. I think, and this is no offense to the Suns, who are the greatest team in the bubble. There's no offense to the Portland Trailblazers, who are, killing it as well, also in the bubble. And that's any team, really. But I think they're going to win their first round matchup no matter what. I still think, even with everything going on with them, and they've looked very lackadaisical, they looked very lazy at times, especially on defense. Some of their shooters have not been getting hot, which is something that, look for in playoff time. If this is still happening come playoffs, then there's a problem. But I think as of right now, the Los Angeles Lakers are not in any danger. But that's just the way that I feel. And kind of like the last, unless there's other stuff you want to talk about, the last big story for the week. The Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets, who have lost, I want to say 9 or 10 players that were originally meant to be on the roster. There's starting guys like Jamal Crawford and Tyler Johnson and dudes like that. A lot of young guys. This is not a playoff squad, right? Let's call it for what it is. If the East was a better conference, they would be nowhere near it. Even the Nets were not a good team before all of their injuries, all right? And the Nets went out this last week and got the 3rd largest NBA upset according to point spread in the last 30 years. What I mean by that is the Nets were 19.5 point underdogs to the Milwaukee Bucks this last week. They won, I believe, by 3. Is that the greatest upset you like in terms of since I've been watching the NBA, that's the biggest upset I've ever seen. I'm curious. Are you on the same page with that?
There we go. I'm back. Cut out for a second.
All right. Are you kind of on board with the idea that the Nets defeating the Bucks is like one of the biggest upsets since you've started watching?
I mean, Giannis played like 16 minutes, so.
Okay, but I've heard that, and I'm gonna go into why that's like not a valid reason. You know what I mean?
Okay, well, let's hear it. Let's hear it then.
All right. The Nets are literally starting a fucking G League team. That's about as simple as it gets. I mean, they did not. Okay, you're right. They did not. Giannis only played half the game, but they were losing when Giannis was in. You know what I mean? They still, Giannis was pulled at halftime. They still lost, and they were still losing going into halftime, right? Other players for that Milwaukee team, which are now, we didn't mention it, they're going to be the first seed in the East. They clinched it, which wasn't surprising. It was only a matter of time that they ended up doing it. Same thing for the Lakers. Lakers clinched last week. Listen, the Nets were without so many players. Here's the best part, right? Not only were the Nets missing so many pieces, Jamal Crawford got injured in that game as well. So they were without him as well going in, for the rest of the game. 5 minutes in, he went down. So they were, without Kyrie, KD, DeAndre Jordan, Jay Crossover, other players I'm forgetting. You know what I mean? They were legitimately without the vast majority of the roster. So for them, for like the Giannis only played the first half argument, that doesn't really sit well with me, considering that the Brooklyn Nets roster at this current stage, the current Brooklyn Nets roster that are actually playing is legitimately a G League roster. And that's not me being mean. There's legitimately few players on this roster outside of a few that would actually be on any other roster that's a playoff team. Like, and that's why they were 19.5-point underdogs. But, shout out Joe Harris. Shout out Karis LeVert, who helped, carrying that team. Timothy Luau Karabat, TLC, helped to lead him to victory. He was one of the players that went off. But, dude, there's been a lot of players who are just, they're bubble gods right now. So
that was TJ Warren until last night.
TJ Warren was a bubble god. Who was it that went off for the Suns last night, who I'm forgetting the name of? Was it Cam Payne?
Might have been Cam Johnson. We do have Campaign. We do got Campaign too, I think. I don't know.
I believe Campaign. I want to say he went off for like 19 points.
He went off for 15.
Okay, never mind. But still, he's one of those bubble gods. If you were to just throw out a prediction for what team is going to be the hottest going into the playoffs, that's kind of a weird thing to say. But if there's one team that you were I have super high expectations for this team, they've looked so good, who's an outside shot.
Someone who's just sending. You just want each conference or just one conference?
Yeah, you know what? Go each conference. Somebody who just is ascending right now, who maybe is getting overlooked.
No, the Nuggets, dude. The Nuggets. I've told you for many, many years, the Nuggets. The Nuggets are the team just going to send it right into the playoffs. They're that team who's going to come into the playoffs and no one's going to expect. They're going to be the Nuggets have always been there, but it's the Nuggets are here. The Nuggets could upset. The Nuggets is the team. I believe the Nuggets were the only team in the West that could beat any team in the 8 in a 4-game series. I think the Lakers are very touchable. I've always believed that, even with AD and LeBron.
Yeah, same here.
I think the Clippers are another team that's kind of with the Nuggets that could beat any team on any given day if they're extremely hot. Because at the end of the day, if you look at that roster, day in and day out, that roster is the most well-rounded best roster in the NBA. I don't care what anybody says. Outside of maybe that Nuggets roster, because that Nuggets roster is also very well-rounded as well.
Yeah, that's kind of where I sit on the fence of it. I think that the Nuggets are really... Listen, here's the thing, right? I feel like with the Western Conference, as of late, and I feel like this entire season, everybody's just talking about Lakers-Clippers. And it's, to be fair, those are the two best teams, arguably. Especially in terms of name power, I'd say for sure. But it's dude, I think both of those teams are super viable to get upset. I think legitimately both of them, especially the Lakers, have high upset potential. Especially right now with them not looking very good. And I don't think they're that in danger of losing in the first round or something like that. But I think they have high potential to be upset. I think a team like the Nuggets could potentially do it. I think a team like, OKC, who have looked really, really good. And I said, they're a team that could potentially get hot in the bubble. I just think their chemistry, their defense, Roberson's back, and he's looking good. I think there's a lot of stuff on that OKC roster that leads me to think maybe they can upset a team like LA. I think Denver is another team they could upset. Basically, here's the thing, right? I could see legitimately. There's only one team I see that for sure. I'd probably pick as the easy out, and that's probably Utah. I think Utah's looks not very good right now. In terms of,
it's surprising because they're not a bad team.
Yeah, but who's the person you have in the East that's kind of a live dog for any?
Well, they're not streaking right now, but the Heat has as of this year, the Heat have been they're there, bro. They're there. Maybe they haven't been on that crazy streak in the bubble. Maybe they haven't been the craziest in the bubble, but they're there. Same with I'll throw the Raptors in there because the Raptors have been hot in the bubble too. Former champs, they're still coming in. They're still looking alive. They're hey, we won last year and we don't got Kawhi anymore, but we still got a lot of the guys who were there last year.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am with the Raptors. I think people forget people say that Kawhi just carried that Raptors team. That's such a ridiculous tired take. Honestly, that Raptors team is excellent, dude.
Oh yeah.
Kawhi, he was the star, but you still got dudes like Gasol, Lowry, Pascal Siakam. They have a really, really good bench as well. Like, there's Fred VanVleet. Like, they've got a lot of amazing dudes on that roster. And I really don't want to give my our overall predictions for who's going to the finals right now. But I could easily see the Raptors doing it. Like, everybody talked about the Bucks, but, dude, I think the Raptors could potentially go again. But as for teams that I think, 76ers have been kind of disappointing to me. They are a team that's not looking, especially given Ben Simmons' injury, I could see them losing early. Team that I think potentially, could do really, really well is Indiana. And that's even beyond, the TJ Warren stuff, right? I think the Pacers overall are just looking really, really good. And I like that roster a lot, especially with Oladipo. And he's playing again and he didn't expect to play. I think there's a lot of potential on that team to go far. But, is that all we got for the NBA this week, my man?
I think we do, man. I think we do. We're going to come back next week, and it's going to be an interesting time.
Yeah, by the time we come back next week, guys, playoff picture should be mostly set. Either that or we're going to have a play-in series on the West Conference side. But, Eastern Conference is set right now. We're just looking at seeding. Funny enough, Washington fell behind Charlotte in terms of the rankings, and Charlotte's not even in the fucking bubble. So I don't even know why they invited Washington. We knew this was not going to happen. We knew they weren't going to do anything, but here we are anyway. So
they're like, John Wall might come back, and so will Bradley Beal.
Oh yeah. Remember whenever that was like a topic, but they had both said nah. So anyways, hope you guys enjoy this one. Courtside Soundoff available on YouTube, Podbean, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify. Anywhere you can find a podcast, you can find us. I'm at Josh Evanoff on Twitter. He's at AngelShaker_01. Courtside Sound 1 on Twitter, also on Instagram, Courtside Soundoff, and on Facebook. Thank you guys for listening as always. So peace and butt grease. Mouse click.